Hey everyone, this is Martin, and we are up to day number 14 on the 30-day Build Yourself a Pathway Back to the Land series that we're doing here on video. And before we get started today, for those of you that are, you may feel stuck in a place where you're not back to the land and you're not quite sure how soon you're going to be able to make that move. Today's subject is, what can you do right where you're at to start propelling you towards that goal of moving back to the land? So we're going to get into that in just a minute. First thing I'd like to do is have you hit the subscribe button down below and the notification bell, turn the notifications to all. And then also, we did a companion book to the video series that you do not need to have in order to follow through the video series. It just fills in some of the gaps a little bit more, and gives you a place to write notes. I've got notes all over mine. And I'm actually going to be referring to this one a little bit today, because we cover some things when we were in a place where we had not been able to get back to our land. We were on a little tiny, actually we started on a rented lot, then we went to about a 1/8 of an acre lot, and so I'm going to tell a little bit of the stories of the things that we were able to do right where we were at, that helped move us in the direction of our back to the land goal. Okay. And just real quickly, on day 15 coming up, we're going to talk about, is 1 acre enough? And I think you'll be surprised at how much you can do on a small space. And then on day 16, we're going to hit a subject that seems to be of great interest to everybody, and that's learn to create income on your land. And you can do it before moving out onto your land, so just getting things started. So make sure to get subscribed on here so you don't miss day 16, because that one is one that everybody is interested in. Okay, so what can you do right where you're at? And if you're one of the ones, like many of us are or were, where it was, you're just kind of stuck. You have this dream, you want to get out and start moving towards your back to the land journey, and you just feel stuck where you're at, and where you're at seems like you just can't do anything. And I believe real strongly that there's never a time when you can't do anything, or can't do something. And it's just a matter of trying to figure out, take stock of where you're at, what you can do, and then just start implementing things ahead of time that will carry and transition with you as you go onto your, you reach the point where you are purchasing your land. And my wife and I, when we started out, before we had kids, our first little house was on a rented lot in a mobile home. It was a little tiny thing. It was a 10 by 50, so it was like 500 square feet. Little 2-bedroom mobile home, barely enough room for us, much less kids in the future, or doing anything that we felt that we could be able to do. We weren't allowed to dig up any of the ground around us or plant anything or anything like that. So we were stuck in a little space on a rented land, and just felt like there was nothing that we could do about that. And even after looking at all of that and feeling stuck in that, we still were able to find something that we could do. And what we started doing was we found a local store that was a warehouse market, is what it was. And what they did was they sold goods in bulk at basically wholesale prices. Now, I'm sure they weren't quite wholesale, but they were much better than they were at any other stores around the area. But the only thing that you could do there is buy things in bulk. So you had to buy full cases of stuff at a time. And it was just that way. You went in and got a pallet truck, and you just wheeled it around the store and loaded it with cases of goods. And so we started with, we didn't have a lot to work with. So we started with, 1 week we went there and we bought a case of corn and a case of beans, or something like that, and like green beans, and 2 cases worth of stuff, hauled it home, made some makeshift shelving in the little bedroom. The trailer was a 2-bedroom trailer, so we set up one of the bedrooms as our pantry, and we started with 2 cases of vegetables. And the next week on payday, we went and got maybe 2 more cases of canned goods of some kind, some soups and things like that. And we did that real regular. There was dry goods that we got too in bulk, and cereals that you could get in bulk. And it was we were just stocking up a little at a time of all of the things that we could buy at a discounted price that would help create a food supply for us. And we did that. That was just about the only thing that we could do there, but we at least did that. So when you ask the question, what can you do where you're at, that's an example of that. Start storing up some produce, canned goods, things like that. If you haven't gotten into canning yet, consider going to farmers market and produce vendors and things like that, and get stuff and start stocking up. If that's all you can do that. And going back to yesterday's subject about build something, you may even have to build some extra storage shelves for yourself when you start doing that. Now, after that, we went to, again, this is just examples of what you can do where you're at, even if you feel like where you're at you can't do anything. So when we got out of that trailer and moved into our first little house, it was like a 700 square foot 2-bedroom house, and it was on a lot in a town that was maybe about 1/8 of an acre. So, and it wasn't laid out very well. It was the house kind of right in the middle of it, and it had a little tiny, about a 10 by 20 shop in the backyard that took up space. None of it was laid out the way you'd want to lay it out if you were going to be doing a homesteading kind of a thing. It was laid out very poorly for that. Had sidewalks in the way of things too. So when we started working on that property, I'm going to go down through and list some of the things that we did on, remember, just a 1/8 acre lot. So the first thing we did was built a raised bed garden in our backyard. It was not a very productive one because there was trees, and we didn't really want to just cut down all the trees. So we had to find the space that was the sunniest space that we could find, and started building a garden, and we built a raised bed garden back there. And it produced, not real abundantly, but it did produce vegetables for us and a crop for us that we were able to start with our canning. That was the very first part. That was our very first experience with the garden. It was the very first experience that we had with canning anything. And so that was something that we could do on a very small space. After we got started with the garden and realized that we were having problems with trying to grow things on that small space with all that shade, we ended up building a small greenhouse on the front of our house where that was facing the south, where it would get sunshine. And we built that out of spare building material stuff that I just picked up around off job sites and things like that was going to be thrown away. We built that whole greenhouse out of that. I found a bunch of old windows that someone was giving away, and we stripped the glass out of them and used the glass for the panes. And believe it or not, that greenhouse helped extend. We were able to grow things in there all through the winter, and the only heat that we had in there was a little bit of heat that came in from the house, and then we had these big, we took 55-gallon drums and painted them black so they would absorb some heat from the sun shining through the glass, and it created some thermal mass inside of the greenhouse that kept things warm at night. And we did that there. The canning and preserving activity started there. We had we added a wood stove. We were on gas. It was an old floor furnace, not efficient at all, and it was a cold house. And so that was our first experiment with installing a wood stove. And we had a little drafty box stove that, and it was our first experience with cutting a hole through the roof and putting a chimney stack in there. So we were able to do that, started cutting wood out. We had friends that had places out in the woods, and they let us cut firewood there. So we started our whole wood stove experience in wood heat there. Later on we went and transitioned to an airtight, a much better wood stove, and got a better location in the house that was more central, so that we could start actually really heating the house with wood. And that was something that we were able to do on that little place. After that, oh, the garage. Yeah, we had this little garage that was too small to put a car in. And so we turned that into a wood shop and started building, started our woodworking skill development there, and started doing craft shows and stuff like that so we could start earning extra income doing that. That was not heated. So the little box stove that we started in our house ended up getting transferred out to the workshop, and that heated the workshop out there. And this was my favorite part. One of my favorite parts of life was, if any of you are old enough to remember looking in the back of Popular Mechanics magazines or Outdoor Life or anything like that, you would find ads for Foley bell saw sawmills, and those ads haunted me. There was a time when I finally decided we're going to get a sawmill. So even though we were in town on 1/8 of an acre, we bought a sawmill. I remember we paid, oh gosh, I can't remember exactly what we paid for it, but we took it in installments of $100 a month. So we spent about 3 years paying off a sawmill at $100 a month. And on that one little tiny lot, we were able to set up a sawmill. Now, I did not cut there because we were in the middle of town, okay? But we set the mill up. I turned it from a stationary mill into a portable mill there on that property, and then once we made it portable, I could pull it to other places where we could set up and actually do sawmill cutting. So that was all part of things that we were able to do right there where we were at. We were at that little place for about 7 years, and had a couple of kids there. When the third one was on the way, we decided we were going to have to get into something a little bit bigger. So we ended up moving to a little bit of a bigger place where we were actually on about a half an acre worth of land. And that was nice and sunny. We were able to put in actually a real serious garden there, and still in town. I mean, we were still in town, but you know, the whole subject is what can you do right where you're at right now. And what we did there was put in a huge prolific garden. I mean, it produced like no garden we've ever had before or since. And that was the property where we decided we had a bigger shop on that property, and we ended up building rabbit hutches. So I expanded the skills into, you know, building rabbit hutches and then starting to raise rabbits. And the rabbits were prolific. I mean, it's like, I don't know if you've ever raised rabbits or been around rabbits, but it takes almost no skill to do that. If you can get a buck and a couple of does, pretty soon you have more rabbits than you know what to do with. And that's the way we were at there. We had we started butchering and freezing the rabbit meat. We started the rabbit litter, or the rabbit pellets, the rabbit manure. Okay, that all went into the garden, and the garden just flourished with that there for fertilizer. So, well, he's back. I don't know where he keeps coming from. That's that same one. So find things that you can do right where you're at. You don't have to do everything that you have in your dreams, but you can find something that you can start with and start to develop those dreams. Being attacked by woolly worms today. Anyway, so what can you do where you're at? That's the important thing you need to figure out is if you think that buying land is going to be maybe a 2-year process or a 1-year process or a 4-year process, whatever that is going to be, figure out what you can start with that will contribute towards the goal of you moving back to your land. And don't wait till you make that transition. Go ahead and figure out the things you can start right now that start either teaching you skills or developing your self-sufficiency in a better way. If it's things, I would not put up too much of like permanent structures and stuff like that on your land unless that's going to enhance the saleability of that when that time comes. But start where you're at, figure out the things that you can do, and start doing things that will contribute towards that end goal of moving back to the land. And start right now. You don't have to wait till you get there. You can start right now and start getting ready to make that transition. Tomorrow we're going to go into, is 1 acre enough? And as you can tell right now from today's video, It probably will be, but I'm going to break that down into how many square feet you're dealing with when you're dealing with smaller size lots or smaller size pieces of land. And I think you're going to be surprised just how much there is available when you're dealing with 1 acre or even less. So subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and we'll see you tomorrow. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a like and a share, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and the notification bell. See you next time.